Boom! Down goes Alabama. Can you believe it? Listen, if you're a college football fan, since 2014, how many weeks has Alabama been number one? If you don't know the answer, it's over 50% of the time Alabama has been ranked number one. 65 weeks out of 121. So now we know along that way Clemson was in there too. So that means them two teams have really been dominating that position. Now, Alabama has lost. And if you have a team in college football that is undefeated right now, and they're in the top 15 teams, that means your team may have an outside chance of getting themselves into that top 4 or 5 positions to play for the national title. So, let's talk about what happened in the beginning of the season and what's going on now. In the beginning of the season, the rankings at that time were Alabama, Oklahoma, Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia, Texas A&M, Iowa State, Cincinnati, Notre Dame, North Carolina. Now, if you look at that right now, Clemson is on they were booted weeks ago. Now they're at number 25. I still don't think they should be even ranked. You don't have Notre Dame. You don't have North Carolina. You don't have Iowa State. Texas A&M, who was there, this is the first week they got back into the top 10 because they beat Alabama. I couldn't believe that Texas A&M did that. But anyways, now, so if we go to week 7 of college football now, things have changed so much that, and we're going to see more changes as this season goes. We're going to see massive, I think we're going to have more changes in the top 10 than we've had in years. But right now, number 1 is Georgia, who I think is going to be almost impossible to get out of there now. Number 2 is Iowa. I don't think they're going to move much either. Cincinnati's number 3, Oklahoma number 4, Alabama has slipped to number 5. Then, after Alabama, then you have Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, Oregon, and Michigan State. So in the top 10 teams right now, you have 5 teams from the Big Ten. Now, only 2 of those teams have played each other. So that means the rest of the Big Ten, any of the teams that are in the upper rankings right now, they are going to have to play each other. Coming up soon is going to be Michigan, Michigan State. Then Michigan, Ohio State. Then you're going to have Penn State and Michigan. So, some of these teams are going to have major games if they want to stay in the top 10. They're going to have to win them. So anyways, I look at the college football as being more exciting right now than it has been in some time. So now, if you go down the rest of the way right now and you look at the other teams that are in the rankings, the AP poll this week, you have an undefeated Kentucky at number 11, an undefeated Oklahoma State at 12, Ole Miss 4-1 at 13, Notre Dame is at 14 now, that's 5-1, Coastal Carolina again 6-0, Wake Forest 6-0. So you have undefeated teams here that need to play out the rest of their season and see how they finish up. Obviously, not all of these teams are going to be undefeated, but it's going to make for such an interesting next month and a half of college football. I just can't wait. So now, let's go ahead and look at the schedule this week. If you remember last week, I said beyond last Saturday, you could go to the beach, take your family camping, because there's really not a whole lot of great games. Last week's games, the good games here were, and we had some great games, again. It was number 1, Texas A&M beating Alabama 41-38. That was a barn burner. If you stayed up to watch that game, it was phenomenal. Kentucky beating LSU 42-21. You had the Michigan-Nebraska game. Michigan there squeaked by Nebraska 32-29. Damn, man, they were almost sleeping again. Iowa beat Penn State. Penn State lost the quarterback in the first half of the game. So they were really playing without their starting quarterback. I don't know if Penn State would have pulled that game out, but I think they may have. You had Boise State upset BYU. Wake Forest barely beat Syracuse last week. Michigan State beat Rutgers. Another high-scoring affair was Mississippi 52, Arkansas 51. So Arkansas is kind of fallen off a little bit. Another high-scoring affair. Oklahoma 55, Texas 48. Oh my God, no defense there. So now, this week here, we only have a few games. I'll run through them. A few games that are interesting or good. I think most of the Big Ten is off this week, so they'll start back up on the 23rd. But anyways, games of interest this week for me is Florida and LSU. Florida's played good at times, but then other times they haven't been so hot. So I look at Florida beating LSU this week. I hope they do. Now you got Oklahoma State and Texas. Undefeated Oklahoma State, a Texas team that's ranked 25th that almost beat Oklahoma. So I think that's going to be a good game. If you go down the rest of these games, there's really not too many other good ones. Texas A&M, Missouri, Michigan State, Indiana, UCF, Cincinnati, until we get down to the 3:30 game on Saturday. Now that's going to be a good game in my opinion. Kentucky and Georgia. Kentucky's undefeated. Are they for real? Can they play with the big boys? I mean, this is a big game. Could we have another upset? So we have Kentucky and Georgia, 3:30 on Saturday. That's going to be a great game. Other than that, folks, we really don't have a whole lot of other good games. Now, in the next couple weeks, this whole scenario will now start making sense. We're not jumping ahead and talking about the playoffs or who's going to be in what bowl games. But in the next couple weeks, as we round out October, all of this is going to start coming into play. Now, the one thing that I don't really care for is, yes, Alabama lost the game. Until they were beat, they deserved number 1. But they only fell to number 5. So the poll makers here are really setting up Alabama to be back into that national title picture. Alabama wins out. They're going to play Georgia for the SEC championship. If they beat them, then Alabama's going to have every right in the world to say, hey, we belong there. We should be playing for the national title. And so that would put Alabama back in there with Georgia and possibly Cincinnati, Iowa, or however the rest of the Big Ten turns out. So anyway, so I think that we have some amazing scenarios. We have some amazing college football yet to come. The season's already been great. So I'll tell you what, I hope that your team is doing good. And I'm going to catch you on the next episode. Go Blue.